Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Nice.
Good. Dan,
Let me make
how
sure I
you
got my
doing?
screen capture going here. 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. There we go. Cool. There we go. Nice. This is very nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Yes, you're out in London right now, or?
Yeah, I go between Sydney and London because I work online. So, yeah,
What's your other channel?
I only have one. I
Oh,
only have
yeah,
one.
yeah. I thought you mentioned in 21 Nuggets or whichever that you had a second channel.
Yeah, I did in the beginning only because I didn't know that if you sign into YouTube under a different email address, it creates a whole new channel.
Yeah, and then you got to build a whole new audience, right? Yeah, not good. So.
No, good techie learning anyway.
Yeah. Well, super nice to meet you. I love your shows. I have actually listened to quite a few of your shows, and they're very good.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. And we've got a mutual listener.
We do. I know. She was the one
Yeah,
that kind of pushed me your way, and it's funny as that show I did, I got more hits out of one show than I ever have. I don't know why, but
fantastic.
I think
Yeah.
maybe the name, but I don't know.
What was it, the Living in the End one?
That was, yes, it was the
Yeah,
Manifestation 301, Living in the End is what I called it. And
yeah,
yeah, it seemed to work well, but I don't know. We'll see what
yeah.
happens.
Excellent.
So how do we want to do this? Or I don't know. It's my first time.
Me too.
Oh,
Well, I
well,
mean,
very cool.
I've done other radio things, but I mean, if you had an idea of what you wanted to talk about, what was
Well, you had
your,
suggested the moods chapter, which I think is a
oh,
great
yeah.
concept.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Sure. I mean, if you want to, I mean, do you want to do it like a Q&A? Like you ask questions and I respond, or do you just want to talk about it? How do you want to do it? I'm open.
I thought we could like maybe talk about it a little bit, and if there are some questions, and what's your perspective, and here's what I think, and I'll just kind of go from there. But I'm
Cool.
super curious to kind of get your take on things. You obviously are very successful where you're at right now, and I think that's super cool. I'm trying to turn this into a more successful thing. I've got a background in radio, so that's kind of why it's the radio style thing. I used to be a broadcaster,
Okay.
and then I'll do a little voiceover work, and then now this YouTube stuff. So I'm trying to build
Yeah.
this side of my business. I work IT during the week is my normal job.
Okay.
So, and I like it. I actually enjoy what I do, and it's got good benefits and all that. But I'd really like to see this YouTube stuff take off and
Yeah.
really be able to do like what you do and just put out
Yeah.
3 to 5 videos a day. You are busy.
Yeah, I do. Well, you know what I did was I just I started in 2013 just doing a manifesting stuff channel, and I was doing about 1 or 2 YouTubes a month.
Okay.
And then from that, I started um, introducing Neville, because Neville's quite hard to understand. So I
He,
started with general law of attraction, and then I started heading towards Neville bit by bit by bit. And then what happened was it started attracting people that were already in the know about Neville. But then I started to say to people, I'm talking about manifesting this, that, and the other. But if there's things that you want to actually get me to talk about, I'm giving you the opportunity in this YouTube, put your request down below. Now, since I've done that, I've been doing 1 to 2 YouTubes a day because
okay.
I don't have to come up with ideas anymore.
Yeah.
It's all coming from the viewers. And, I think once you hit 1,000 subscribers, you can sort of get a bit more momentum, because nothing much happened for 2.5 years, I'll be honest. It kind
Right.
of was
No, and
just,
that's where I'm at. I mean, I finally broke 100, which was a big deal for me. I was like, woo!
yeah,
And,
I saw that.
yeah,
I saw.
and
That's
thousands
great.
of huge deal. But what's funny with yours is like 3 days ago, I looked at your channel and you had 1234, 1234 as your
Mm.
number of subscribers. And I'm like, oh, that's a very synchronistic number. That's awesome. And you're jumping up like 3 to 5 a day, it looks like, which is really cool. So,
Yeah, just all of a sudden. And I think, a lot of that is to do with keywords,
yeah.
and 90, probably 95% of my audience, I've realized, is looking at the How to Manifest a Specific Person YouTubes. That's how they get into my channel.
Interesting.
They, you know, cars, trips, money,
You know what?
jobs, all of that's secondary.
Since that's really key to your audience, and I think it's actually a great thing to talk about. Why don't we focus on that, but maybe kind of center it somewhat on the moods side of that? Because I'd certainly be very curious your take on that. And I've watched a couple of your videos, and you linked 3 of Goddard's videos recently, and I watched the second one. It was very short, and frankly, I didn't think it was horribly helpful. He kind of talked about how he was able to get the divorce to happen and all that. I'm like, well, that's wonderful. I guess if you're married, that is an obstacle, a pesky obstacle that you need to remove. But So when it comes to trying to manifest a specific person, I guess a couple questions I would have is, one, is it okay to have a very specific person in mind? I mean, if they're not in your life yet, that a lot of people might be, well, maybe they're not supposed to. So I'd be curious what you think on that. And then 2, I would assume the mood aspect of it, to deal with Goddard's concept of moods, would be more to kind of what would it feel like when you're together already? So like a month or 2 into your relationship, you know, the honeymoon phase is still going hot and heavy. What are those kinds of feelings? And I'd be curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, well, look, there's 2 schools of thought with this. There's a lot of people like Florence Scovel Shin, who's been dead a long time now. She came from the mindset that you pray for the divine design of a person, and then you allow that person to come. She was not a believer in you can manifest a specific person. Neville Goddard obviously believes in you can manifest a specific person because he actually tested and trialed it, and then he got the result. So some people are really dead against it. It's kind of an area of controversy because some people say you shouldn't force your will upon things. But the thing is, if you want to manifest, say, a car or a job, some people say, I really want to work for this company. I'm really going to focus on that, and I'm going to try and get a job there. And the thing is, if you've got a specific person that you know, you are not forcing your will upon it. You are selecting it because, this is going to bring up another thing.
I agree. And I don't want to get off where you're at. I like where you're at. But I think you did a video not long ago where you talked about there was like 4 different ways. You know, there's one where the 2 of you are together and you've decided to be together. And there's right, and so I believe in regards to what you're talking about, as far as forcing your will on another one, I don't believe we can. You've always got the power of free will. But what I think you're doing is you're putting that energy out there. And if that individual is in a place to make that choice, am I on the right track? If they're in agreement with that idea and that energy, then they're probably going to start walking down that path and join up with you. Does that sound close?
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, you are here, whatever you want's over here. And if that thing over here is a person, what you're doing is you're creating a line of energy between you and it through focus. And then you bring it in through allowing. So you're not actually because people say, oh, it's manipulative and you're trying to force something that maybe shouldn't happen and all that stuff. So there's a whole bag of different beliefs that people have. I mean, I personally have done it, so I know that it's possible. I also had times where I tried it and it didn't work. And this was when I first started reading Neville, and I still had wiggly legs about manifesting.
Right.
So, and I'll be honest, even knowing what I knew about Neville, it did take, because we were living in different countries, a lot of focus to collapse space and time between where he was and where I am, and believing that it was possible to do it across that massive amount of physical distance. I
agree. And I think, well, one, what's funny is I think a lot of us start to realize is distance is really not real.
No.
So that's a big leap. And then I think, too, it's practicing, certainly here in the States, and I'm assuming Australia is somewhat similar, but here in the States, like, we are so programmed to watch TV and have things presented to us that we don't imagine anymore, that our imaginations have been lying dormant since we were probably 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and, and stopped imagining being a princess or playing cowboys and Indians or whatever, army, whatever the heck, kids are doing these days. But I think the other side of it is that practicing and getting more comfortable with imagining. Because frankly, when I started this, that was kind of the trickier part, is just doing the same thing over and over. And I'm noticing that the picture is becoming more and more clear in my mind. And there's like 3 things that I'm manifesting right now. And it's kind of fun to see how things are playing out. But as soon as I started doing it, a lot of things started lining up. And oddly, Australia keeps popping up a lot, which is really weird to me. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a place I've always wanted to go. And I've always had a fascination with Australia in general. But I have no idea why Australia has been popping up. You're a part of that. There was a customer that came into that little coffee shop I work at on Sundays. Yeah. And they were from Australia. And I made the same mistake, misnaming their accent. Because I'm a bit special when it comes to that. But yeah, it's weird. And then there's another couple people on Instagram that are from Australia that are following me. So it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's that thing when you appreciate something or you're drawn to something, it's drawn to you as well.
That's true.
It's drawn to you. This is what is so exciting and fascinating about all the Neville stuff, is that nothing's set in concrete. And then this, like what you were talking about, that YouTube about selection, it's like all the different quantum possibilities exist, like books on the bookcase, and you choose the book that you want to read.
That was amazing. That was honestly probably one of the best illustrations of that point I'd ever heard. That was awesome. Oh, good. Yeah, I really like that.
It gets really, like people say, like, yeah, I read that, but what does that mean?
Right. And reiterate for anyone that might see it on my channel that haven't seen it, but you had talked about where you could have like 5 different colors, and I think you were talking about colors or something like that, right? Like, the different colored books. Right, different colored books. And so you might have an orange, a yellow, a red, a blue, a green. Yeah. And just because you grab the blue book and read it doesn't mean the other 4 colors aren't still sitting there. And I thought that was brilliant because, you're keying in on the blue. So in the case of what we're talking about in a relationship, you're keying in on a specific somebody, and maybe that somebody is blue. And maybe it doesn't work out, and maybe it spans into someone else. I mean, I still think there's that, once you're putting that energy out there and really trying to manifest, that if that individual that you're trying to choose isn't going to come on board for whatever reason, it probably would lead to another that's very similar, or probably maybe even a better choice. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Could be. I mean, I think a lot of people do that. Oh, this is something better, because that comes kind of from.
And I agree. That's an ugly term.
Well, no, but the thing is, if you believe that, then that works for you.
Okay. Yeah, true. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that belief. Every belief you have is supported by evidence in the 3D world that comes at you. So if people say, oh, there's more fish in the sea, and you might get this or something better, and you believe that and you take that on as your belief system, then you will get the evidence of that. Somebody said to me recently, I was following someone on their YouTube channel, and they said, Agnes, that you can't manifest a specific person. And she said, and I'm listening to you and you're saying that you can. And I said, look, there are different ways around the circle. And I said, law of attraction interpretation is a bit like, for thousands of years, people have interpreted the Bible. There's still completely different ways of doing it.
How many different versions have they written for that? Exactly. Right, exactly.
So I said to her, you choose what you want to believe, you follow which belief you want, and then you will get the evidence of that belief. And she said, well, I've got a specific person in mind. I said, I found that information really distressing. I said, well, there you go. You go, I don't want to believe that. You believe what you want, and then you follow it. And I said, that Neville manifested a specific person. I said, that I've manifested a specific person. And I said, I've written about 10 stories that of other people that have actually, I went hunting for stories of people that had done it. So I found them. Yeah. So, and now, of course, because of the internet, you can access that kind of information. So everybody's got their beliefs going. So,
and I think you're keying in on something super important, which is the belief. And I've talked about it in some of my stuff too. I think that's where maybe law of attraction helps a little too, where it kind of helps us hone in that our day-to-day thoughts that we might sometimes beat ourselves up with, but ultimately it comes down to what do you believe? What are you able to wrap your head around and accept and just run forward with that concept versus constantly having self-doubt, or like that lady you were talking about where it's like, well, I can't do it. Well, I can do it. Well, I can't. Well, you got to have to make up your mind and get in line with one of those.
Exactly.
And if you can't, then don't, and just, manifest the person or believe that you can and do it. Yeah. But I agree. There's examples of both all over the place. And I think it is whatever we set our minds to. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. And also, I get a lot of people from the YouTube channel sending me emails saying, because they're trying to put all this stuff into practice and they're trying to draw their specific person to them without any kind of, going out there and contacting them too much and trying to pull them in. It's like you've got to allow and stop picking the fruit before it's ripe on the tree. So it's like the people that have sent the emails have often gone to psychics because they're looking for reassurance.
Right.
And then they end up hearing all sorts of stuff that either totally destroys their dream because the psychic said, oh yeah, that person's never going to walk towards you. You may as well give it up.
Right. It's like,
and then they say to me, now what do I do? And I said, well, number one, note to self, don't go to psychics for reassurance. Number two, to make it easier for you, because I thought I did that too when I was in the 90s or when I was really not understanding that I create stuff.
Right.
I did the same thing. And then I heard something and then I couldn't eat for 2 months and I couldn't sleep because it was so distressing because it was crushing my dream.
Well, it's like they'll talk about the energy that's around you at the moment. And then you're putting a lot of faith in someone that who knows how good or gifted or truly in line.
Exactly. And it's like the diagnosis from a doctor when you're trying to work out whether you're going to live or die because you've got some temporary illness, and then you believe the diagnosis and then you die.
Or it's like the people that have some sort of a couple symptoms and they go online and try to self-diagnose and they got some crazy life-threatening disease all of a sudden. It's like, what?
Exactly.
Who told you that?
Exactly. That's awesome. I was saying to these people, note to self, don't go to psychics for reassurance. But also, if you have done it and you bloody well heard something terrible, remember, this is a moment in time. And they've more than likely, if you want to make it to ease your, painful hurt and stuff you've heard, view it as they've read my worst fears and then they've photocopied it back. And that's what they saw was what if this doesn't happen? And then they've read off that energy. So,
and again, on that same concept, they're like you said, they're Xeroxing or photocopying exactly where you are right now. But what we're talking about with this Goddard, with law of attraction, with all this stuff is we actually create our realities. It's not happening to us.
Yep.
Really, that's where even like the moods, when we were talking about that coming into play, like you almost really have to kind of own that, like I control my life. I manifest my own realities. And then it's like, wow, now how's it going to feel when I finally have this thing that I'm trying to manifest? What will that feel like? What's my mood going to be? What's my energy going to feel like at that point?
Yes.
I would assume you were using, so maybe talk, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but like when you manifested your specific somebody, were you kind of using the feelings of it too? Like, and how far into the relationship were you as far as where you were imagining it?
Well, I was imagining being together. I was imagining, where my blocks were at the time was I'm in Sydney, he's overseas, there's a huge gap physically. I'm actually working, I'm only allowed a certain amount of weeks off per year. How am I going to have a relationship when I actually can't break free long enough to be able to sustain going back and forth? Do I want to live in another country? So I had all these sort of blocks in the way, and I thought, okay, how am I going to, what the heck am I going to imagine so that I can bypass all this? And I knew I didn't have to work out the in-between part. All I had to do was let go of the in-between part. And that was really hard.
I know what you're saying, and I think I get it. But for anyone that's listening or watching, why did you know that you didn't have to worry about the in-between, all the connecting all the dots, crossing the T's, dotting the I's? Why didn't you have to worry about that? I know the answer, but I want to hear you.
Yes, good question. Well, the how, if you focus on, which is the living in the end, which is what is the end result,
Right.
then the steps and the way it unfolds will fall into place of its own accord. That's how creation happens. You get out of the way and stop thinking that you can tinker around and make it happen.
Right.
But that's the hardest part for so many.
It really is. You're right, because that's where a lot of our mental blocks are, is I'm not making enough money, or I don't have the right house, or I don't have this, I'm not I fancy enough car to get the girl that I want, whatever the case is. And it's like, well, don't worry about all that. First off, the person's going to love you. They're going to love you for who you are anyways. But second off, things are going to work out if they need to in advance. And just, like you said, living in the end, living as if you've got already what you're trying to manifest or what you wish to experience or have. When you're already there, universe, source, whatever, really fills in the blanks for you. And it's amazing. And when you finally let go and get the heck out of the way of yourself, it's amazing what stuff can start to happen in your life. So back to, so how long did it take you probably start to finish? You started imagining your significant other.
It took quite a long time, because I could not work out how I was going to bridge the work gap enough to be able to travel back and forth. That was frying my brain. So what I did was I just said, okay, I'm going to just imagine being there, enjoying time with that person, and doing really ordinary everyday things, going to a cafe, having a meal, going to a movie, watching TV on the couch together, holding hands. I just did really basic, simple things. So I did that, and then I did a lot of self-love meditations, because it's so easy to when you've got a gap between you and the person, that you go into some feeling of, I don't feel loved, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel secure. And I thought, I've got to bypass all this, and I've got to feel loved, I've got to feel worthy, and I've got to feel secure, because that's what I'm really, really after. And I've got to get to that feeling place, because that's the new state of being.
Yes, actually, yeah, very good. And that's I think that speaks volumes to some of the healing. Like I recently just did a show on doubts, and how doubts are actually kind of magical, because they do show us some of the blockages that we get to work through. But on top of that, and I think the other really key point that you brought up that I think is really important for other people when you're trying to manifest, especially something major, a relationship is in that line. And major, I probably shouldn't label it as such, but something that's maybe a little bigger than a parking place or a green light or whatever. But it's the fact that just keep working at it until it happens. If it's something that's truly important to you and really matters to you, would it be worth doing imaginal exercises for a month, for 5 months? If you really desire to have it, keep at it, and you will be surprised, because you actually do start to see things happen along the way that give you indications that, it's starting to kind of work itself out. This is weird.
Yeah, that's true. And also, people will often say in the threads of the YouTubes, so if I do this, how long do I have to do this before it happens? And I go, well, I'm not a psychic. I'm just
23 minutes.
I can't actually measure your belief barometer.
Right.
So I laugh, because I think, God, I wish I had the answer to that. But, you just do it until it happens. And some of my things have taken 3 to 4 years.
Right. And here's the sad part. We talk about not going to psychics, right? So if you were able to give them that answer, that may be where they're at right now, but it might not be what they want to hear, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, some things you'll manifest really quickly.
Yes.
Because you haven't got the handbrake on.
And you don't have a doubt problem with it.
Yeah, or you've got a bit of doubt, but it's kind of believable. But for me, going, okay, I'm going to have a relationship with someone in another country that's a 24-hour flight from where I am, and I'm going to work out how to create money so that I can go back and forth and not be bound to a job that I can therefore not have a relationship.
Right.
And I didn't want to be, I didn't have this thing that I want to move to that country and I want to live there full time. I wanted to be able to go back and forth because I love Sydney, Australia, and I wanted to be, you know, my family's in the south of France where I was born, and then, you know, my person's in London. So It was like I could see this triangle. I always had in my head imagining this triangle going between the three places. So I kept seeing this triangle, and I kept seeing the three words: Sydney, London, south of France. Sydney, London, south of France.
It worked out perfect. I mean, which is funny is that friend of mine actually just is flying back right now from London.
Really?
Yeah, she was out there for 10 days, so I thought that was pretty funny. So.
Wow, there you go.
And you end up out there. That's kind of how I found you, so it was very ironic.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. I really appreciate the chance to talk with you. It'd be fun to do this again, definitely. Sometime.
Well, you know what? I had this thing in my head. We could do it like once a month and pick different topics. Because I love doing YouTubes, but it's so nice to have the to and fro and working out the mechanics of things together. That I think is where people really learn, because they see the inner workings of two people's minds and different questions pop up. So yeah, if you want to do that, I'm open. I
would love to do that. It would be wonderful. And yeah, this was what's really funny is you remind me of my aunt. It's like my favorite aunt out of all my relatives. So that was like the first thing I saw when I looked at you. I'm like, she looks just like my aunt. How funny. So I would love to do more stuff with you, though. That would be outstanding. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this with me. But just definitely we should do more of this.
Well, when that person told me about you and I saw it, I just instantly got I like that guy. He's got a sense of humor, and he's doing, because when I heard Living in the End, my ears pricked up and I went, that's
well, I totally got that from you, so I plugged the heck out of your show, and I'm like, you guys got to go to her channel. She's better at this than I am. Shoot, but I love the way you describe it, and you've just got such an awesome format that works out really well. I mean, you talk about it, you do a little reading from the book sometimes, and then I love the way you respond back to your people. It's very cool, and you've given me a lot of really neat ideas as well. So I really appreciate it. And obviously, I had to write down your name phonetically so I would say it correctly. It's so awesome. And it's Vivarelli, right?
Yeah, Agnes Vivarelli.
That's Italian, or is that French?
Yeah, my surname's Italian,
okay.
But I was born in France, and I grew up in France when I was actually young, parts of my growing up. So I have no connection to Italy, and I've got all my connection to France where my relatives are.
Well, either way, you're drinking wine. That's the important.
And eating lots of pastries.
There you go. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this, though.
Yeah, good. No, I like it. It's good. It's working. It works well. Hey.
I think so, too. Yeah, this worked out really well. I'm curious to see how the recording comes out, but it should be good. Yeah. I didn't get to use my normal microphone. I'm going to figure out how to work that into our next one. But, this came out good. Yeah.
We'll get better as we go on.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your reading of the moods thing.
Well, I loved, so Law of Attraction sort of talked about trying to have the feelings of this, of what you're trying, how your feelings actually kind of matter in the scope of manifesting, but it was never done like Goddard did. Really, like Goddard was kind of that missing piece for me. And that's why I did that one show where I thought the bridging of the two was kind of like, for me, it was a big aha moment, a big epiphany. The light bulb turned on. I was like, oh, this is it. You have to imagine it. And then from there, the rest of it's just trying to keep yourself in line. So when I got to the mood part, that made all of the Hicks stuff make sense. So it's weird to me though, that she doesn't talk about really a lot of the imaginative aspects of it.
No.
Don't get that. It's like you're missing a really key piece. You've got the rest of it so nailed down.
Yeah.
And Goddard really does deal well with the imaginative aspects, but I don't feel like he gets into it. And maybe it's just because I'm still new to him, but I don't hear a lot of stuff, how you kind of got to get through your day to day, how you deal with the doubts, how you deal with like the blockages we've talked about. When you've got something stuck in your head that there's no way I can be rich because people with money are jerks or people with power are not to be trusted. And it's like, well, that's not the case. And you can't become wealthy if you're constantly thinking that wealthy people are bad. So it's kind of one of those things where we really have to learn to notice where our blockages are, or to notice where those negative thoughts that creep in, and kind of really take advantage and sort of embrace and love those things. And like you were saying, doing self-love meditations or trying to heal yourself through these processes, because a lot of us have programming that we don't realize we have. I mean, maybe your dad always had an issue with the neighbor across the street that had a really nice car. And he's like, oh, he's just rich. And then you grew up hating rich people.
Yeah.
Well, when you're trying to manifest money, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Neville doesn't address that.
No, and it's kind of weird.
Whereas Abraham Hicks does address that stuff, you know, so they kind of go around the circle again. Yeah. And she is easier to understand because she's still alive.
So,
you know, she speaks our language in 2017. So you've kind of got, you know, you're fitting together your own pieces of the puzzle, and you're taking bits from everywhere. I think, I mean, her biggest message, I think, is if you just feel good and you go for the feelings of if you had the thing you wanted, if you go for those feelings, then the thing just comes. Whereas he says, you know, God is your human imagination, and you are the creator, and you go forth by really, and he talks about it in the book, Prayer, The Art of Believing, about thought transmission. That's his big thing. And you just keep doing it night after night after night, and you don't really think about the beliefs that are in the way, or the blocks, or the family beliefs. You just go for it.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's different potholes in both. And you've got to go, okay, well, what is it about me that I can't manifest this thing? Because sometimes people ask that. I've been trying to manifest this for like a year and nothing's happening. It's like, okay, what's going on with your belief system?
And that's the hard part, I think, is really getting people to notice when they're having these thoughts that contradict what they're trying to manifest. And I think that is really the potholes in the whole concept of manifestation. Is the self-doubt or the lack of belief. And that's where I think where Goddard's is key. But I just think the bridging of the two is beautiful, because I believe his power, Goddard, I keep pointing over here, the books to my side, right? You can't see that, but Goddard's imaginative is, I think, the most powerful way to manifest, hands down.
Yeah.
But the Abraham Hicks approach is kind of you spend maybe 30 minutes a day imagining, and then you've got, you know, another 16 hours that you got to get through. And I think that's where Hicks really starts to come into play, is helping us stay focused downstream, or just try to, you know, keep it going, stop the doubt, all that stuff.
Yeah. You know, I had lunch with someone today, and, you know, his question to me was, you know, I mean, he's been doing Neville a long time. And he said to me, how do I live in the end during the day? There's that question again. He goes, like, how do you do it? And I said to him.
So what was your answer?
Well, my answer was, because Neville talks about the old man, which is basically in the example you gave, I am poor, or I hate rich people. There's the old man, all the old things. The new man would be, I am wealthy, I attract money, everything and everyone prospers me now, those kind of thoughts.
Right.
So during the day, so you got 24 hours, you take out a half an hour to an hour, you've done maybe 2.5 hours in your day doing your meditations. And then you've got, you know, you take out sleep, and then you've got this block of, you know, 15, 16 hours left. So you to live in the end result, you have to, as Neville says, carry around the feeling. So how do you do that? Because you can't just go, oh, I feel wealthy. Your head will go, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Instantly.
And it's really hard. It's also, in the case of wealth, it is, if you're someone that's dirt poor, and like you were talking about in one of your videos, how you were worried about how I was going to make next bills, how, like, you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're still not making it. It is really hard to feel wealthy when you're coming from that place. So I totally get it with people. An issue of slowly building and getting a little money put aside, and then you start to feel more wealthy. But I completely agree with what you're saying.
I mean, the wealth thing, I mean, I personally found, I just couldn't hop into feeling really wealthy. Because I came from people that no one had bought a house in my family. Everybody was renting. You know, I mean, there was just no kind of wealth in my family. And I was thinking, how the hell can I feel wealthy when I don't even have any clue what it feels like to be wealthy?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know, my grandfather hugged me a lot, so I knew what I felt like to be loved.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
unloved, but I
Yeah.
don't know how it feels to feel wealthy. So I went through this whole 6 months of studying myself as to how can I work out the mechanics of how to get around. I've never felt wealthy, but I want to feel wealthy. How do I do that? And what I worked out was wealthy people feel free because they can do what they want when they want.
Right.
So I thought, okay, if I try and get in the back door and feel free, how would I do that? And I thought, well, on weekends, because I was working 5 days a week then, I thought, well, on weekends I'm free. On weekends I can do what I want. And I'd go for walks on the beach, you know, in Australia, big open spaces, wind blowing, sun. I would feel free there. I'd feel free if I went walking in the bush. I'd feel free if I was driving my car on the freeway. So what I would do is in those moments, I would use that to really say, I am free, I am free, I am free. And then I would say, I am wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. Even though I didn't quite connect with that so much, the freedom component was much, much easier to get in the back door for me. As I did that, then I started saying I work half the hours for twice the pay, because that my head didn't argue with. I could understand the concept of saying, okay, if I'm earning $500 a week, then I know that that actually means I'm earning $1,000 a week. My head can see that. I can understand it. I can see the mechanics. Yeah. So I had to break it down into
and that's kind of the approach I came at it from. Maybe a little less of the free thing, which I probably would have been great had I worked on it. But for me, it's like just a small back trail for me. When I got done with radio and kind of gave up on, wanted to actually start making money because radio paid horribly, moved back and started completely over. Literally, if I couldn't mail back stuff from where I was at, it stayed in Tennessee, which was where I was doing the radio stuff. So initially, when we got a little help buying a condo, my brother helped me, parents gave us money, and we paid them back. And then my brother wanted out at the top of the market, so I bought him out. And at that point, I was working 40 hours a week at a mortgage company and 35 hours a week for Starbucks. And literally for me, it was just like, how can I work less? How can I make more money in my primary? And it was just an issue of trying to inch up and inch up. And then it got to a point where I didn't need the second job and I'm doing fine. You know what I mean? And now it's like, okay, now I've got some money in the bank and I kind of know what that feeling feels like to have some money. Yeah. So for me, that was kind of the direction I went with it. And so I'm starting to understand what that feels like. And then it's easier to, you know, add another $1,000 or $2,000 to what I make a month without any sort of big jump. And then voiceover work started happening. And now this YouTube stuff is really starting to kind of pick up a little bit for me. So it's like, as you start to expand what you believe you can do, your life starts to expand. It just naturally starts to, and all the blanks start to fill in with the right activities. Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of like you go up in it's totally steps, and that's I think so many people try to go from here to way up here, and it's like there's so much belief jumping that has to occur to do that. That I think for most people that's really hard to do. It is. Because you don't get your footing. You don't get your internal footing of feeling secure on that particular issue. Right. Or when you do get lucky and something awesome happens, or maybe you're in commissions and you get a giant commission month, right? And then you start doubting yourself like, well, it was a fluke. Again, if you've got your footing, then you know that giant commission check that you did, you can do it again and again and again. And so I think it's a way to totally build on ourselves. Yeah, for sure. Nice. I do agree with you. The bigger jumps, they do happen, but not as often as this thing. I think that kind of thing seems to be more believable to people's belief systems. Well, it's like when you've got stairs in your house, they're not giant steps. I mean, you go up, 9 inches at a time or however many centimeters that works out to. But yeah, you're going to go up a few bits at a time, and then eventually you get to the top. Yeah, exactly. That's okay. That's exactly. As long as you're moving forward, you can see that your beliefs are stretching and that you're getting better at it.
Yeah. And I think too, I don't know about you, Dan, but you're obviously, having done radio, you're fairly creative. A lot of people that are creative have the belief creative people don't make money. That's not
Yes.
uncommon. The starving artist
Especially on the
syndrome.
spiritual path. Like when you're going up on that,
Exactly.
I'm supposed to be giving all this stuff away, and I had to undo a lot of programming in regards to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's not uncommon. Not uncommon.
Yeah, I think once I realized that, one, we create our own realities, but two, there's no reason why we can't have what we desire. And I really think that's built into this system that we live in, or Earth, or this, whatever we want to call this place. It's pretty fun and groovy, especially once you start to figure out how it works. It just gets better and better, frankly.
Yeah. And it gets easier, and the dramas subside, and you just have more peace, and you have more moments of surrender and allowing, rather than how can I make this happen? I'm an action figure,
It's nice. Bring up, I think, a great point, actually, or at least you made me think of something. But a lot of times too, some things that as we're developing and growing ourselves, especially when we're a little newer in this game of manifestation or imagination, sometimes you've got friends that might start to fall by the wayside as we start to shift upward. A lot of people, I think, maybe have a hard time. I'm curious what you think on this, but maybe have a hard time letting go of old ties, thinking that they should hang on to those relationships. But in reality, that's part of your growth and heading into this higher energy, and you're sloughing off things that are going to get replaced with better energy or better friends that are more supportive or have a better view of what you're capable of, or whatever that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely happened quite a few times in my life. I've got one friend that I've had for 20 years, and she bought me my very, very first two manifesting books, Florence Scovel Shinn and Neville, The Law and the Promise. And we do 3 questions every day, and we've done them for years and years and years. And she is my flock. We've still, when we started, we weren't looking up YouTubes. All we had was we'd go to the bookshop and buy books.
Right.
And then we'd say, okay, get that book. And then we'd share the book. And if it was good, we'd both buy a copy. So she's the one that's hung around forever with me. And the 3 questions that we do have been the Neville, Esther Hicks inspired questions of what do you want? And then you say, no, I'm great. What do you appreciate? What do you want? And what makes you think you're going to get it? And the last question presupposes that you will get it.
Right.
So we do these 3 questions every day. And we have done that for years. And it's a really good way to commit stuff to memory and to be able to say it out loud to someone day after day after day. Because Neville talks about things becoming natural, that they feel natural. And the repetition is what makes things feel natural. So I used to say to her, I now travel from London to Sydney, back and forth, and I take my work with me, and I can enjoy my mum, and I can enjoy Australia, and I can enjoy London and the south of France. So I would say this to her day in, day out, day in, day out. And then it became a reality.
And I think that's a great example of one. If you've got a friend that's kind of been in this path with you, because obviously she's into this same concepts, right? Versus those friends that are very, no, none of this can happen. You're crazy. You're making stuff up. And those might be the friends that you don't hang out with as much anymore. But having that person, like you said, having that person where you can talk about something like, this is normal. This is reality. This is how it works. And then they bounce the same things back to you. And but it's just that reciprocation, or that that synchronicity, that resonance almost, if you will, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I find too, like when we would read something out of Neville, which was fairly, wordy and complicated, I'd say highlight it, and I'd say to her, what do you make of that? So we've done that for like 18, 20 years of highlighting and breaking things down. And I thought, all those years of doing that with her basically is the knowledge that's built up my YouTube channel.
Right. That's pretty much what you're doing in YouTube now, except for all these other people that aren't necessarily doing this yet. So
so it was it was totally a personal fascination between me and her. And then it became, something that started off a creative love of mine, and then connecting, because I think sometimes, like you say, you've got friends that don't do this. I have friends I don't even mention this stuff to, and I've known them like 15 years. They don't even know I do this.
They're like, you have a YouTube channel? What?
So what are you doing now? Oh, I'm a YouTuber. What?
Yeah, right. When did you start doing that? I don't know, like 5 years ago. I had to,
Yeah, but they're not that interested, or they like living in reality. So I don't even bring it up.
Well, it's funny is I had a discussion. It's a very good friend of mine that I know from the coffee shop, and she just recently subscribed and started watching some of my stuff. And so she had some weird questions this morning, and we were talking about maybe seeing like significant patterns in the world. Like she brought up, so say, I think it was the number was 423. So say that number means something to you. Well, now you're looking for it and you see it everywhere you go. And I said, well, yeah, there is that. When you are looking for something, you will see that something more often.
Yeah.
But the big point around that is when you open yourself up to noticing things that show themselves. And my example that I used for her, which is maybe kind of off topic somewhat, but I'm like, have you ever seen a shooting star? If you think about that glimmer, that 1 to 2 seconds at best, that you happen to look exactly where that star was coming down, if you think of how freaking impossible that actually is, that's a great example of you can start to notice some of the, what I kind of like to playfully call magic in life. You start to see a lot of the fun little coincidences for those that are new to it, but you start to see the synchronicities. You start to get information from the universe that's like, no, good job, you're on the right track, or cheerio, mate, or whatever the right thing to say is.
But, that's it. And it's I mean, this is what Esther talks about all the time. This is a focus-based universe. You're always going to get what you're focused on. So if you're looking for the magic, you're going to see it. But you know what? This brings up another interesting point about the whole concept between you and the universe. Now, the universe, and I get this question a lot via email. I've been praying to the universe for this, and I've been doing this, and, I'm waiting for the universe to give me a sign. The universe only gives you the contents of your consciousness 100% of the time. It's not acting independently.
Right.
It is photocopying you all the time. There is only you.
It doesn't have an opinion. It's just a factual reflection. Yes.
Yes. And this is the thing. And I think a lot of the hippies from the 70s, which is my generation.
I'm pretty much there.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in the 60s, so I grew up kind of in the 70s. But that whole, universe and the spirituality being out there and all that stuff, and I'm waiting for the universe to give me, that's a statement from that crew.
Right.
And I used to say that too, because I thought that was correct. But now I understand it just goes ka-chung, ka-chung, photocopies your beliefs on money, relationships, love, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people, work, money, etc. And then it gives you evidence. It's not actually acting independently and rewarding you or withholding from you anything.
Right. But by the way, you had another video where you did the photocopy, and you do the ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Love that. The sound effect is perfect. You got this, man. There's a second business for you right there, sound effects. You got this.
But it's that thing. Sometimes if you bring it into really basic visuals, because I think, that's the thing with Neville. He talks a lot about, he goes into religious stuff, and then he goes into, a lot of the language from that era. Now, there's
so many 60s. That was totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, they would have tarred and feathered him had he not been using those terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's good that you can kind of pick out, the feathers from the bones, and then just eat the meat that's left.
Right.
And
I think that's also good for the younger crowds that are coming in now, because a lot of those people have a stigma against religion, if you will. And so when the God word gets thrown around too much, it starts to freak them out a little bit. And then conversely, I think with some of the older crowd too, if you throw around universe and spirit and all that stuff, they get a little, know. So the words are kind of synonymous for anyone that's having a hard time with either of them. Use what's comfortable. Frankly, God or universe or Father or Creator or whatever you call this being, spirit, whatever, doesn't care what you call them.
No, and you know what's great is, Dan, whether you are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, black, white, gay, straight, whether you even have a tiny iota, you could be fully atheist. You can still manifest because it's belief based.
It doesn't.
That's what I love.
Universe doesn't care what you believe. It just cares what you're putting out there. Exactly. Well, it doesn't even care. That goes back to that opinion thing, frankly.
Yeah.
It gives you what you ask for.
It just gives you, and
chunk, right?
Yeah, ka-chunk.
I love it.
That's what's so great is no one's excluded, and really, you don't even need to ask people what they believe. All you got to do is have a look at what they're living. It tells you. Right.
And really, you can probably talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes and quickly figure out, okay, well, you've got a lot of negative, and gotta just, what do you want? Just think about that. Stop worrying about all this other stuff. Just think about where you can go. Live in the end, which I think is key. That's one of the best things that I read so far out of all this. And I actually totally got that from the first video of yours that I watched.
Living in the
absolutely powerful. That is.
It is. And going back to what we were talking about, how do I live in the end? It's that thing of constantly saying to yourself, because it's that thing you say, okay, say you want the green BMW, and you go, okay, I haven't got it, but if I say to myself, oh, I love driving my green BMW and I can feel the steering wheel, then your head goes, you haven't got it yet. What are you doing? You haven't got it yet. But I've worked out, if you say to yourself, yeah, but wouldn't it be nice if you were in that car now? Your head can't argue with that.
Right, that's true.
So
I also think, too, for those that are having a hard time seeing it or believing it, go down and test drive a car. You got nothing to lose, and at least then you've got a real experience that you can say, yes, I can do this. I am in the car right now. And I totally agree, because it's that mind chatter that we have to learn to deal with, and that's really the parts that are slowing us down, if anything. I mean, it's in some cases dang near stopping us, but
and sometimes, as Neville says, and this is the bit that he words really well, and we actually understand it in simple English, if you keep thinking of something, you can do that for 10 years and it will never ever get you what you want. You have to start thinking from it. Now, how do you do that? Like you said, you go into the car, you test drive it. So when you leave the car yard, you go home, you go to bed, you close your eyes, and you remember the smell. You activate the controlled, vivid imagination, the eyes, how it smelled.
You remember where the radio's at, what it felt like to hold the wheel. I mean, the power pushing you back, and it becomes very real that when you're trying to imagine living in the end and driving this car around, you know exactly what it feels like to drive that car around.
Exactly. And that's how you live in the state of having.
And that phrase you did, I hadn't heard that yet, but that is beautiful. Thinking of something versus thinking from something. That's very profound and stated so simply.
Well, and that's a Neville thing that he always says, you stand in the position of from. So you look back at yourself not having it. That's where you got to go.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
It's a different vantage point mentally.
So you're saying look back or look forward?
You're looking back. Okay. So what you got to do is, if you're thinking from having the car, you are literally in the car, driving the car, smelling the car, hearing the radio, feeling the leather seats. Now, when you are in that imaginal state, you think to yourself, you've got your eyes closed, you're in imagination, and you say, God, remember when I didn't have this car?
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's how, but it's weird because you got to not go back. You got to not go back to person without car.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of confusing in its own right, but it does make sense.
Yeah,
like
I know.
Paradox.
This is the kind of Neville black belt next level of imagination. Yeah.
That is awesome. So, okay. Yeah. No,
Do you want to go through it again? Does it make sense?
Please.
Okay.
If not just for me,
Yeah.
probably
No,
for others, because I think that's a huge point.
No, it is. It's really good. Okay, so Neville talks about with anything that you want, you've got to live from it and stop thinking of it. So when you're thinking of the car, you are here, the car's over there, across the street, and you're looking at the car with a gap in the middle of space. When you're thinking from having the car, you're in the car, you're looking out the driver window, back at where you used to be standing when you didn't have the car.
So it's important, you're saying, to remember from the vantage point of having it, to remember what it's like when you didn't have it.
Exactly. Which
actually helps build that appreciation, right? That's where that feeling starts to get even better, because you can sit in that place of having it in the end.
Yeah.
And imagine when you didn't have it, so thusly you can feel more appreciation for now, I think.
Yeah.
But that seems like a neat little, I don't want to say mind game, but kind of.
The thing that you're doing, okay, I'm going to give you another example. If you are, say, on one side of the United States and you're trying to get across to the other side, if you say went by foot, how long would that take?
Forever.
Like 4 months?
Probably, sure.
Okay.
It's a lot, 3,000 miles. So
it's huge. Okay, it's huge. So let's say it takes 5 months, and you're walking every day for about 10 hours.
Right.
So you've got 2 points between one side of the US to the other side. So it takes that amount of space, takes you 5 months in time. Now, if you flew, how long would that take?
3 hours, 5 hours.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're collapsing space and you're collapsing time from 5 months down to 3 hours. So that principle of collapsing space and time is what you're doing when you're living from something. You're no longer seeing the gap in between. I'm here, the car's over there, I've got to get over to the car. You're actually in the car and you've totally forgotten being over there. So you've collapsed space and time through focus.
Okay, I like that. And it's funny,
that's more simple to kind of get your hands around.
And I'm like imagining Einstein high-fiving Stephen Hawking's right now, because I feel like you've just collapsed space and time in a very unique kind of way. But actually, that is the reality of it.
It is.
I think that's a great way to think about it and to help imagine it. And I think that's where so many of us get stuck in these blocks. Like you said, if I was trying to walk it, I couldn't do it quicker than I can do it. But I don't let that stop me. I don't let that be my thinking. I just do my 10 hours a day. And, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And that's what this whole process is about, is beginning those steps, working on the doubts and the things that creep in. And like you said, trying to shrink that space and time between this thing that we perceive as not here.
Yeah.
To making it where it was more, it is here, and we're looking back to when it wasn't here. It's a very different mind shift, and I think a powerful way to look at that.
Yeah. And when I was in Sydney thinking, how am I going to get all the way to London and France, my thing was...
Walking was probably not part of it.
No. But it was collapsing in my head, the space and the time. And I was also collapsing beliefs around money.
Right.
So it was that thing of, okay, because I had this thing in my head, I was going to do it 4 times a year. Now, I did that last year. I did 4 trips in 1 year, and I fully paid for everything in advance because I didn't want to have, the whole debt concept is no longer a thing for me.
Nice.
It's like debt exists because you don't believe you can create money. And credit cards exist because you believe you can't create money. And loans exist because you believe you can't create money. So I thought, I've got to get better at believing that I can create money for everything. So I thought, okay, I'm going to pay for these trips. I'm going to go 4 times. I'm going to collapse that space and time. And I had to do one, like you say, 1 step at a time. First trip, second trip, third trip, fourth trip, and then got to the end of the year and went, okay, I've done it. So it's applying the living from it. Because when I was in Sydney, I'd be laying in the bed in London or laying in my bed in France at my auntie's house. So I could easily access the images because I've already been there. The first trip was the hardest because I hadn't been there. So it was practicing. This is not hard. This is easy. It's only a 24-hour trip. I get there really fast. It's only it's 2 flights. It's 24 hours. It's not a big deal. So I've kind of brought it down to size and started living whichever bed I was in. I'd be thinking about the other bed I was going to go to. And then I'd be in that bed in imagination, bed number 2, looking back at bed number 1 and going, wow, I love this.
That is and I love that look. And I think the other thing that's really cool for your listeners and probably mine too, it's the fact that these are like, we're real people too, you know, like we're through this stuff as well. We're just sharing what we've come to find as a reality. And as we've done it a little bit longer, we've become more comfortable and we're sort of expanding our horizons more and more and more. And, you know, where you and I are going to be manifesting stuff in 10 years from now is going to be vastly different than where we are right now. Yes. So again, for a lot of the people that are newer into this, it's okay. Keep at it. We struggled early on too.
And we still struggle now.
Yeah. We still have our moments.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, I read Neville and I didn't do anything much for the first 3 years. I read it and went, oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. But my life was still completely stuffed in pretty much every area.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, now I've read it and I've read it and I've read it and I've understood it. Now let's put in the practical. And, you know, in every book, he repeats similar things. Live in the wish fulfilled. Live from it. Don't think of it. You know, and how to live in the end. And he would give examples. And he repeats and he repeats and he repeats. So you get lots of the same information from different angles, from different stories, especially in the law and the promise, because it's all different people's stories. So you get, and that's what I love too, because you're not getting, here's the really smart person telling the student how to do this. Right. You've got ordinary people, like you said, just like you and I, that are probably dead now because that book was written a long time ago, but they gave the story step by step what they did, and they're still teaching us through those stories. And the cool part too in that regard is that stuff wasn't as common back then as it is now. There's like zillions of books now. I mean, they're all over the place. Everyone's talking about it. Yeah. But back then, that was like taboo. Like it's accepted now. Yeah. Yeah, that was like dark arts, man. But nowadays, that's very common. So I agree. Exactly. I think it's a lot easier today. I think the world supports it more, which I think also helps from an energetic standpoint. But yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are, you know, waking up at their own time, coming to terms with this realization that we are in charge of our lives. And that's one thing that I know here in the States, they program the crud out of it in us that you're not in charge and that you need to come and get this thing. It's going to make you a better person. If you buy these new Nike shoes, you'll be able to run faster than everyone else. And it's really stepping back from a lot of that programming and saying, no, like, first off, I'm fine as I am. And I can start to build my life in the image I wish for, not the image that everybody else thinks I should have. Yeah. So I think it's really the first moment when people grab hold of the reins of their own life and really start to drive their life is a very empowering moment. And then from there, you just start to grow and you start to manifest all sorts of cool things. But you're not going to jump from making $20 an hour to $100 an hour in a few weeks. It's just not likely going to happen that way. You could, like you said, it definitely can. You could win the lottery too and suddenly become a multimillionaire. I mean, these things do happen, but for the majority of us, you'll build. You'll build. Yeah, and it's still moving. It's still moving. Yeah. So you start far feeling. From done, that's for sure. Yeah. And I mean, what the fact is, you get to actually interact with the world in such a different way when you actually see that you're pre-paving everything through what you're launching and projecting out. You know, I mean, everybody goes law of attraction, but really it's law of projection first. Law of attraction is a secondary thing. Yeah, and that's where, like I said, I think Neville Goddard has just nailed it with, you opened my eyes in such a huge way. It was awesome. I love it. Oh, that's good. And it's funny, as a friend told me to buy this book, I want to say, 3 months ago, she's like, you got to read Neville Goddard. And I'm like, all right. And I went on Amazon, bought the book, and it'd just been sitting in my room. And then, this mutual friend between us is like, oh, you got to check out this lady's videos. And then you were talking about Neville Goddard. And I'm like,
well, I've got the book.
Wow.
And so then I reached out, and you'd mentioned what chapter or what book I should read. I think it was the Law and the Promise.
Yeah. Have you
And
got the book that's got a few books in it?
I've got it's called the Complete Reader.
So it's got all his books in it.
Yeah, it's got all of them.
Yeah.
So this thing is, this is a great book. So, so that's what I ended up buying, and that's what it was recommended. It's like, it's got all of his stuff. So that's awesome. I guess we're plugging the book too. But
yeah. Hey, look, he's dead and he lives on. He's dead and he lives on. And I think, the fact that we're still talking about it, I'm sure he would, be very, very endeared about that people have actually taken what he said and applying it and getting results. I mean, I can imagine that would be such an incredible thing to witness. I'm sure that
leaving this legacy that he's got and how profound it's becoming for sure. And
it's wonderful stuff.
It has, and like I said, I just probably about maybe a week and a half at this point, I've really been doing the imaginative stuff.
Yeah.
And already I am definitely seeing things starting to happen, and it's just I'm not at the place where I'm manifesting. I'm not there yet, and I guess that's probably not really the best way to look at it, but. But needless to say, that's kind of real life, I think, for what a lot of people are going to be going through. But the one thing that I keep telling myself throughout the day, like that friend that you talked to this morning at lunch, or breakfast or whatever, is I remind myself it's coming, it's happening. This stuff is all happening, and I've got things that are occurring in my life that really are evidence for the conscious mind, for me to know, yes, this is happening. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's becoming a reality that you are having. It's becoming real. Is essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work on the looking back from. I hadn't been doing that one yet, so that's a neat
one. Okay, so you just got to remember living from rather than thinking of. Yeah. And once you hear that, you kind of go, "What?" Like it flips your mind. We are so geared to thinking of things.
Right. And thinking forward and not necessarily being forward looking back.
I know, because it's like you're sending your spirit forward with its eyes attached.
Right. Yes. That is
going like in those cartoons.
You got and I'm still back on the chung chung, by the way. You got all these. He's got this. People, if you don't know Agnes, you need to know her better. She's amazing.
I find, like, personally, all those weird little visuals are what get me to imagine better.
Yes.
And my last job was doing visual styling displays for homeware stores. So my biggest sense that is developed out of the 5 is the visual sense, and I think that is what gets me to do imagining so often, because I go in there and the world that's created is so much fun. But it's that continuing to develop that skill of, okay, now I go into imagination, I use the visual, but Neville talks about controlled, vivid imagination and activating all the senses.
All senses, right.
Yeah, so over time, it's not just looking out the window of the car. It's like you say, you can feel the steering wheel, you can smell the leather, you hear the radio, and you activate all that. And that's what gets you to live from it and stop thinking of it. It's doing the senses activation as best you can.
And I don't know if it was the book or you, but it was the one where essentially he was asking someone to imagine a rose and to smell the rose. Yeah. And I was like, so I did it because, again, I'm new to the imagination, and I definitely just have to get better at doing it because it's something that I've not used a lot.
Yeah.
But I was like, close my eyes, and when I was imagining, I can do it right now. I could smell the rose. Yeah. And I was like, all right, you can do this. You can totally do this.
Yeah, great.
But for me, it's always been audible. Like hearing has always been my thing. So like my spiritual stuff, a lot of it's been like hearing words and those kinds of things. It's just how it's come to me.
Yeah.
So I'm having to practice more of the visual, imaginative aspects, and certainly the touch and the feel and the taste. And taste I got to work on maybe a little, but the smell, like all those things are definitely a little easier for me. But again, I think for everyone out there, like there might be certain senses that you're going to have to practice a little more.
Yeah.
And they will get better. Just practice, just practice.
But also, Dan, like if you're, I mean, it's interesting you say, because obviously being in radio, audio was your thing too. Like you can go into imagination and hear someone saying congratulations on XYZ. So you can activate the skill that's your natural strongest one and really plug it in imagination because it's your strongest one. You know, you can obviously develop some of the others. I find taste is one I don't really use.
I definitely not done that. I mean, air in my mouth. I mean, outside of that, I don't know. Taste.
Well, me too. And I think the taste, I'm not really interested in manifesting, salted caramel ice cream. So I'm not going to be really using that one.
Right. I can drive down to the market and grab that right now.
Exactly. So, that one's not too hard.
Yeah, that one's easy.
But no, it's interesting once you get into, imagining at deeper and deeper levels, just how it starts. And I find too, like say you've got something that you're imagining that's a really big manifestation and you've manifested some small things and you think, okay, I'm going to go for something big now. And you do it over and over and over. What happens is things start to activate themselves. Like I remember once I was standing at a window and I was imagining, what I was seeing. And I would do this over and over and over. I'd open the window and I would see the panorama of what I could see. Now, I did this night after night after night. And over time, I felt the wind on my face. I heard the seagulls. Now, I didn't inject those in.
They've started to become real in your own imagination.
They injected themselves in, which was, I remember thinking, wow, that's a good idea. So I started to then, every time I went in, I'd activate that sound of seagulls. It's so, everybody knows that sound.
Yes.
And then the feel of the hot sun on your face and then the wind blowing your hair back. And I remember feeling the wind blow the little hairs on my eyes because it was a little bit cool and it just made it, And so all those things were just so,
the blowing your hair back probably works a little better for you because I don't think I can quite pull off that whole.
No.
Little trickier with me on my arm. I can pull that off. So the thing that's funny is one of the big things that I've been working on manifesting right now is my next home that I'm going to live in. And so for me, a lot of it's starting in the master bedroom and I'm working my way down to the rest of the house because I really want a bitchin' master bedroom. That just matters. Yeah. But that's the thing is when I look out the window and the view I can see from the master bedroom and there's like a couple chairs there, like a reading area. And imagine the furniture and the bathroom. And then I've recently gone out of the room and started walking out and got the railing and the office is the next room. And there's a bathroom. And then there's another room. And then the stairs. Yeah. But it's like, it's becoming more and more real. And every time I revisit and I always start in bed, sleeping, waking up.
Yes.
And it's like it's getting easier and easier to imagine the rest of the house. And it's truly coming together. And, I'm borrowing some images from online and whatnot to help fill in some of the blanks because I don't design homes. So sometimes it's like that wouldn't work as a floor plan. But when I get a little bit better perspective, but the house is truly building itself. And I know it's, 5 months, 4 months, I don't know, a year, 5 years, I don't care. At some point, this is going to be my reality.
Yeah.
It's like I don't question it. For once, I'm 100% sure it will happen.
Yes.
On the whim.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's fun. Isn't it fun? Like it's fun.
So much. And that's the thing is I know when I'm finally getting it. Now I'm going to be, again, doing it from and looking back to when I lived in this condo that I'm in now, right?
Yes.
And I'll be like, you remember when you were working 75 hours a week just to make ends meet or, so it's a neat process. And I just try to give people like just a little courage to try and start because once you can start to realize that the thought is the cause. So like once you can start to really get a causation for what you're experiencing, I think it's like it proves itself at that point. Yeah. And what's really interesting about this whole process is you can never prove it to another, but you can prove it to yourself. And I think that is key because everyone wants proof. And it's like, you can do that. I can't. I cannot prove it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And really, you don't want them putting us on a pedestal or something weird too, because I'm not doing anything you can't do. I'm not special. It's just, I've been practicing this a little bit longer, and I'm a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we're all the same.
Yeah, exactly. And you are only as good as today,
True.
like even if you've done it for years, you can go back and go, okay, well, I manifested that, especially on days where you're feeling a bit shaky. It can bring back oh, that's right. If you manifested this, this, and this, that means this big thing is possible. And okay, the belief isn't strong yet, but you knew the belief wasn't strong for those other things.
Right.
So
and yet they still
you reassure yourself, and you shore up your line of energy between you and the thing. And
that's what I think is the big takeaway for anyone that's watched this video with us is it's just, especially for the ones that are more on the beginner path, it totally happens. You just have to kind of keep taking steps forward. And it might be baby steps at first. You might be tiptoeing, whatever, but it does get easier and easier.
It does.
And you see results. You will start to see things happen.
Yeah.
I call coincidence at first. Sure. I don't care.
Yeah. Yes.
But you will start to see things and you'll be like, I was just thinking about that. Wow. And it's just it's a progression. And I think truly it's belief and your confidence. I mean, I think ultimately these are really the things that we're all building up is that comfort with this process.
Well, it's like a fitness. It's a mental fitness. And people say, well, how do I get good at that? Practice. How do you but how do I more practice?
Right.
It's always the same answer.
It's like muscle memory. I mean, eventually it becomes second nature to you, and you just do it. I mean, the easy one for me, and I'm sure you can agree with this, but if I go down to the grocery store or something and I want to make sure I have a parking place, I know I can do that. I can do it all day long. I can go up and down 5 times and guarantee myself a parking place.
Yeah, and that's a good place to start. Parking spaces, cups of coffee, and green lights. Hey, have a go. You're already in the car.
Or someone buying you a cup of coffee. Let's make it even challenging for someone.
Yeah.
So you're in line in the coffee shop and the person in front of you buys you a cup of coffee just to be nice.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've just manifested a free drink, which, that's like finding $5 on the ground. Another thing that's easy to do.
Yeah.
So again, it's sometimes you got to stretch it a little bit, but then eventually you're like, okay, this stuff works. Now let's start getting serious about it. Let's do a relationship. Let's get a car. Let's manifest money. Money seems to be the one that everybody really tries to reach for early on.
Yeah.
And rightly so, money does come too. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah. But it's also, there's a lot, in both of those cases, the relationship and the money, I am worthy or I am unworthy lurks underneath both of those.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
If
there's a lot of emotion attached to both of those things.
Yeah.
And really they are just things, but for the most part, since so many of us have emotion attached to them, it does create a whole separate issue, if you will, or levels of complexity to manifesting that might not exist for a parking place. Because there's zero emotion attached to a parking place for me other than,
Well, and if you have to park 500 yards down the road, you don't really care that much. So.
No, I like to walk, frankly. So I usually park far
exactly.
Anyway.
So
for those that want to be right up front, there you go. Have at it. They'll pull out right as you're pulling in. It's just fun. And that's the one that's fun to me is when they're literally backing out right when you're coming down the row. That's like, okay. The universe could not be yet. It was like screaming at me saying, here's your spot. You want to
there it is. Yeah.
And you can question it all day long because you're going to, it's a coincidence or whatever. But ultimately,
it's a good moment. It's a good moment. Yeah, it's a really good moment. I mean, I think every time I manifest something, I go, wow, that was fun. I'm on the other side of it now.
It is so much fun. It's amazing the feelings that we get even after. And I know you're supposed to feel it before, but there is that weird reciprocal, like happy feeling after, like, it totally works. And it sort of feeds itself that way too. Yeah.
And just that relief of, I did that. That felt good. I did that.
Right. Yeah. Me. No, I did it. It wasn't. I love it. That's awesome.
Excellent.
This was good. We definitely.
How long did we do, Dan?
We've got to be close to an hour.
Okay. Are you with the software, are you gonna cut and chop and
I'll probably cut out that part where we tried to get off, and obviously what we're talking about right now. So I'll probably chop it up a little, but it's okay. I don't know if I should. What do you think? We should break this in parts, or I don't know what the average length someone's willing to listen, frankly.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'll post it on my channel, and then I will link to your channel.
Well, yeah, and I'll likewise, definitely.
Yeah, and that way, it will, point people to you, which will be good. And that was, the intention of doing that, because I really liked you, and I like that you're really interested in this subject, and I just had a yes about you.
That's awesome. So, I very, very much appreciate it. Finding you was like finding that parking place. I mean, it was just like I said, you were a big part of the early on aspect, and the fact that you were willing to do this, like right after I kind of started doing some imaginal work. And then all of a sudden I've got someone who I very much respect is willing to do a video with me. So this is so wonderful. This is very cool.
Yeah.
That all the way around the world. You're 16 hours ahead of me in the future.
I know, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was thinking not long ago, I've been YouTubing on my own for a while. I really want to start doing more like this with people. And I just said, okay, I'm going to set the intention that I'm living from that, and the people come and find me, and I just know when I see them, and then bing, 2 days later.
And I think that's a great example to people too, is a lot of times putting the intention out there. So it was kind of, I don't want to get back on the relationship thing, but it's similar, but putting the intention out there, literally then all of a sudden energies show up from elsewhere and will kind of present themselves. Was that the sunset going on?
No, it's getting dark outside, so I thought I'll put the light on.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say, the sun doesn't shine in England, best I can tell. So you guys got clouds aplenty, but no.
I know, that's why I keep having to run back to Australia, because I can't stand it.
But you got to like the fact that at least in England, not every single insect and animal can kill you.
That's true. I'm happy about that.
The most horrific, horrible creatures down there that can kill you in 2 seconds.
I know. One day I'll tell you some stories about that.
Nice. I look forward to that. That'll be for a separate channel.
Yeah, exactly. The horror channel.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, this has been very, very fun. Yeah. Well, I'll probably chop it up into a couple, like a part 1, part 2, just to make it easier to digest.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I was thinking of probably maybe doing an intro, outro, my whole radio style thing.
Yeah, do it.
Throw the video in the middle, and so that'll be that's kind of my tentative plan. And then I'll see how I can cut this up and how long it is and all that. But it's a good size video.
Can you send me a copy once it's done? Because I don't edit anything.
You don't? Okay.
I always do. If my YouTube thing's crap, I just reshoot. Because I'm not good at editing, and I don't really like it.
Well, that's where my whole radio style thing comes in. So for me, I edit the front and the back because I have to sync audio. So I don't know if you've ever had to film without with a separate microphone, but a quick little trick is you do 3 claps.
Yeah.
And it does spikes on both channels, and you literally line those spikes up, and then you just turn the audio off on the video. So that's kind of what I typically would do, and it's a really easy way to get really, really good quality audio versus you're just using your iPhone, right?
I use the iPad all the time.
Nice. Oh, iPad. Okay, very good.
Yeah. I did the first 70 YouTubes on the iPhone 4 and 5.
Wow.
Because I had no idea I was going to actually do anything that was going to be long term, so I was just mucking around.
Right. My whole thing initially was just audio. I was really into just doing like a audio blog, if you will. And then a while back, someone basically said, you should really do video. People don't really, they want the visual stuff there too. So I bought a little Canon T6 or whatever the heck. But it only lets you do about 13 to 15 minutes total before it dies. So the way you're recording's cool. It's
well, I just bought this. I just bought the monthly thing.
Okay.
So I just because
can I upload files on that or no? Because I'd imagine this file is going to be huge. So I don't know if I'll have to use Dropbox to let you have a copy of it in advance. There's no way I could email it. It's going to be enormous.
Yeah, no. Well, maybe like you said, do it in parts.
But even with the chunks, we're still talking. This whole thing, I don't know what the quality is it records at, but I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say this thing's probably up around 10, 12 gigabytes.
Okay. Well, if
So
you
it's
need to
huge.
chop it, whatever you do it, however you think is best.
Okay.
If you need to chop it into 5 pieces and 5 sections, and it's part 1 to 5, you whatever works. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll figure something out, and maybe I'll,
Yeah,
if I have to, I do have a Dropbox account. It's a free
I
one,
do
but I think
too.
I
But I
probably got
don't.
enough space to. I might be
Yeah,
able to figure out something.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll make it
We'll,
work one way or other.
we'll improve our techie skills in the
There you go.
process.
That sounds good.
So, if you want to do this once a month, because it doesn't matter whether I'm in Sydney or London,
Right.
just if you want, say to me, okay, let's schedule this a month in advance. You tell me what dates because you're working.
Right. Well, for me, weekends are like the thing. So
Okay.
I guess so long as we're doing it like your Sunday through Monday, if that works, because your Sunday's my Saturday.
Yeah, that's fine. And when I get to
generally
Sydney, it'll be a bit different, but yeah, that's fine.
Well, the Sydney time actually almost works better because it's a 6-hour, but backwards. So if I go later in the day, it's earlier for you, and it's the next day. So, but London time's trickier because I think you're 6 or 7 hours ahead of me, which makes it late for you, and it's still reasonably early over here. So this one was a little more tricky.
What time is it at your end now?
It's just turning 11:35 right now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this worked fine.
Cool.
So,
yeah, so good. If you're in England, it works, and France is probably a couple more hours or what?
I think France is 1 hour difference.
1 hour
or
from
back,
where
I
you're
can't
at?
remember with London. Yeah, so that would work as well.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Cool.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
That was fun.
Yes. Woo-hoo. And by the way, I love when you start your videos off and you go, boo. You're the best. And your laugh is awesome.
Look, in the beginning, when you look at my first video, it is so shit. and I'm really like, what? I did it at I think 2:00 in the morning because I'd come back from dancing and I thought, okay, I'm in a good mood. I'll do a YouTube.
Yeah.
It is the first 3 are so bad, but I've left them on there.
My very first audio was horrible.
Yeah, and you just said, well, I'm leaving it on there because it's progression. It's not perfection.
And that's exactly where I'm at with it. It's like, if you're crazy enough to want to listen to all my crap, go back to the very beginning, and you'll be amazed at where I'm at now. I mean, I've definitely, and I love it. That's part of the fun of this is I'm getting better at this every single time also. So eventually I'll get even better equipment and actually be able to record a full-length video without my camera cutting off halfway through and me having to put a picture up. But yeah, my audio records separately, so I can record for hours with my audio. So a lot of times I'll lose my video. I just have to throw a picture in there for the rest of the video because I have nothing else. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. And what's great is always some geeky a nerd that's done a YouTube about how to do something.
That's so true. You can darn near do cardiac surgery just by watching a YouTube channel first. You know, I can do surgery now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, this is good. Well, definitely, I'd love to do this every month. I think that would be wonderful. And let's definitely plan on doing that, and we'll stay in touch. I love your email address, by the way. That is very funny.
The person of interest.
Person of interest 2014, is that?
Yeah, you know what? I was watching John and Finch in A Person of Interest, and I remember thinking,
that's a great
I love that title. And then I remember thinking, okay, I'm actually looking for a person of interest who's manifested something and how they did it. So they're my person of interest. Usually it's about, wanted for questioning for criminal activity. Right. But this is like wanted for questioning about how the hell you manifested that thing. So that's how it came about.
That's really awesome. And then you are a person of interest now. So ironically, that's kind of worked out a little different than you probably planned.
Yeah, it's taken.
Well done.
Well, it's the side salad to the main dish.
Yes, and everyone knows you got to have a side salad. You need that ruffles. It's good for you. Well, cheers, Agnes. I really appreciate. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And you made me realize too. I forgot how much I missed the way you guys say what we call Z, but you guys call it Z.
Z.
You guys talk properly. We don't.
Look, I lived in Canada for 16 years, and then I came to Australia, and I had no idea what they were talking about. I couldn't understand their accent for like 2 years, and now I've got that accent.
Yeah, you got that bloody accent now. That's awesome. That's the best. All right, you have a good one. You have a wonderful night, and we will talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Just swing me an email with a date for the next one, and then, just let me know when you've chopped it up.
Okay. Yeah, I'll swing you an email or I'll flick you one. I think that's a good thing too. We'll go that way.
All right.
You have a good one, Agnes. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.